So we call on stage now the first session, Thomas Künstner. Where's Thomas? Thomas joined the panel, and I hope that our co-chair, Dr. Kallen, is still... Is here, great, okay. Thomas, Thomas is also Thomas Künstner, partner of Booz & Co. What is Booz & Co.?
Well, we are one of the oldest, in fact, top management consulting firms of the world. Some of you may still recall us under former brand Booz Allen Hamilton. We have a 90-year tradition and a very much younger but strong tradition also in the media or digital media space, as we call it. And I have the pleasure to lead our media and entertainment or digital media practice in Europe.
Great. And now you lead the discussion on digital and media strategies. Let's get into this discussion because I know some of our panelists have to fly over soon. So let's call on stage Arkady Volozh, who is the co-founder of Yandex Group, Dmitry Grishin, who is the co-founder and CEO of Mail.ru Group. Who else do we have? We have also Ahmet Özer, the CEO of Trader Media Group, and Dr. Paul-Bernhard, the CEO of Hubert Burda Media Group. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Marcel. Good morning, welcome DLD, and good morning to my co-panelists. I can only echo what Dr. Kallen was just saying. It's actually way too early to discuss digital and media strategies, at least from my point of view. But nevertheless, I can promise you, with this distinguished group of panelists, we're going to have a very engaged and interesting discussion. Obviously, digital and media as a topic is not exactly new, but I think if you look at the market today, the pace of change we see and also the size of the bets, both for traditional media players and digital media players, it's a very topical and very timely topic. I want to focus our discussion today on three topics. One is looking at the consumer, the consumption trends. What do we see? What do we foresee? And are there still step changes, significant moves and shifts in terms of audience behavior? Secondly, the value shifts, obviously looking at dollar, euro, or ruble pools. Where is the money today? Where is it going to be tomorrow? And last not least, discussing a little bit on the ecosystem, the moves players will make, or expected to make across the value chain. What is the position? How do you need to position yourself to be future-proof? Just as an announcement, I will open the panel later to the audience, so whoever wants to participate actively, get prepared for that. You will have the opportunity. And before we launch directly into the discussion, let me share a couple of thoughts just to frame our discussion and also, to give some food for thought to the panelists, starting with the consumer. I was actually preparing a speech on trends in video consumption, online video consumption, and I was doing that on a plane ride from Dublin to Moscow, actually, sitting next to a young woman who was actually watching a comedy show on her iPhone. And I know it's not exactly shocking news to this audience, but if you take a step back, I think there are two observations to make out of that. If you were observing the two of us sitting in the plane, it became very clear that it's much more fun doing it than thinking about digital media consumption. And the second point, if you think about it, and that was about a year ago, it feels normal today, but watching a 45-minute HD video on a screen of that size on a device which is essentially a telephone would have sounded pretty wild and pretty daring just 5 years back. So I think it illustrates the way how consumption patterns shift, how they have shifted already, and the question is, what are the next changes we are expecting to see? So it can go very fast on the one side, but we also see some resilience on the other side. If you look at TV consumption, for example, around the world, despite all the move towards online, still plain old television watching in the living room is still growing in most markets. So again, it's a lot of that is a question of pacing. How fast will it go? Some of the changes, I believe, are pretty predictable. Obviously, looking also at the Russian market, broadband penetration will grow, smartphone penetration will grow, a couple of consumption patterns will be triggered or will be enforced by these. Other moves are much harder to predict, in particular in terms of timing. If we look at digital consumption across the globe today, we see a couple of trends. Video clearly on the rise. Consumers clearly want to get anytime, anywhere connected, so mobile connections clearly play an increasing role. Interactive, it's a clear and very tangible change from consumption, passive consumption, to interaction, and that's true for traditional media. If you look at the mashup formats of TV shows floating across Europe, YouTube, but also if you look at Facebook or other social networks, the way consumers clearly articulate a wish to interact not only with media players but also with consumer brands. I find it always amazing if you look at the numbers. For example, Starbucks has 28 million fans who actually quite actively engage with the brands in the US. This is quite a significant media audience if you think at it that way. The last point is connected, a lot of dual screen usage we see. The question again, I will also pose to the panel, is how fast will it go? Where do we see some sort of disruptive consumption patterns? The second areas are the value pools. Where do the dollars, the rubles, and the euros go? Looking both at the consumer spend, and we see some encouraging signs when we look at, for example, what happens in gaming, but also across the globe, some media brands tried some tiered payment schemes, which we find quite encouraging. On the other hand, there is still a very vivid discussion around the for-free mentality. If you follow the regulatory debate, which we will not focus on in this panel, it's still a question whether there is further value erosion, not only in media, but for example also in some of the telco markets. If you look at what happens, for example, to the messaging side for mobile players being attacked by services like WhatsApp. Obviously, we also spend quite a bit of time looking at the advertising markets. And having said that, being in Russia, we obviously also want to understand Russia and the Russian specificities. Russia, I'm not sure everybody is aware of, is the largest online audience in Europe. I think that barrier was crossed actually some time. So Russia in itself is a very interesting market from our point of view. The online audience actually surpassed the TV audience in that market. If you look at the advertising market, it's clearly TV-led and online-led, which we believe is one of the key themes we see, or one of the key combinations a lot of advertisers also bank on in traditional markets. So there's a lot to learn from Russia, and looking at the player and supplier side, there are a lot of really local heroes, as we said, technology savvy, but not only technology, but also business savvy companies we want to understand a little better. Leads us to the last area I want to touch on, the ecosystem. As I said, there are a lot of moves we've seen recently. If you look at the development overall, I think it's fair to argue that new media players, the Googles, the Facebooks, or also here in the market, the Yandex of the world, have captured the lion's share of digital value creation. So the question is that going to remain along this path? What is the challenge also for traditional media players to change that? And we've seen and are seeing a lot of investments in digital by traditional media players, not only Buddha, but players like Meredith, a US publisher, who invested quite significantly in services which you would expect typically more with an advertising agency. Last not least, if you look at the advertisers themselves, they also build a lot of digital capabilities, capabilities you would typically expect to find either in a media agency or also in a media sales house of traditional media suppliers. So there's a lot of movement along the value chain, and we're obviously more than interested to hear from our panelists what their view of the future is. So without any further ado, I will join the panelists and open the round of discussion. And again, as a quick reminder, you will have opportunity later on to join that. Dr. Kallen, looking at the digital consumer today, I sort of touched on a couple of themes where we see trends. If you look at the digital consumption pattern, what are the major trends where you expect shifts, significant shifts to happen? Is it, from your point of view, more an evolutionary path we're going to see with most of the key trends already laid out? Or are there some significant, more disruptive shifts you expect over the next 2 to 3 years?
I think for a media company, and that can contain information or entertainment, the key that is changing is that all kinds of media is available everywhere at every time. So I think that is the key change of consumer behavior for a media company. Strong brands have to tackle with it. They have to be available wherever the consumers are. That means they cannot be only in TV or they cannot be only in print. They have to follow, they have to be close to the consumers, otherwise they will lose their importance. If it comes to disruption, you know, disruption is always difficult to predict because disruption is what is unknown tomorrow. Many things you can see. That people spend more time in social media is something that you can see, you can measure. It is easy to predict that it will continue like that. That people will use more mobile devices to get media is quite clear, and that local will have a role in it is clear as well. So the interesting question is, what is the next disruption that comes on top? From a media perspective, what we must make sure that our strong brands are where the consumers are. That means we have to follow our consumers to all platforms.
Thank you very much. Arkady, Yandex is probably one of the leading challenges of Google worldwide, the leading search company in the Russian market. If you look at the success you're having and enjoy today, how much of that do you attribute to specific, Russian consumption patterns? And give us a sense of the Russian digital consumer, and what are the major changes you see in that market?
I would attribute our success. It's not only Yandex, the whole market actually. All the sectors of the market have local companies here. Here is Mail, here is Vkontakte, and on most of the market segments we have our local companies. And I attribute it to 2 factors. One is that we have big enough audience speaking the language, and second, we're a technology country historically. We keep repeating it, but before any international competitor came to Russia, we had internal competition here. Our local players were strong because they compete with each other, unlike on any other markets. And also, there is a lot of technology here. It's not only Russia. If you look at the globe, there is a famous technology stripe going from Seattle to Silicon Valley. And if you look at the globe where else technology is, the second stripe is Northern Europe, Russia, Ukraine, and then south to Israel. This is our Silicon Valley. There's actually, if you look at the internet and all the technologies created here, I think 90% of all technologies have been created in these 2 stripes. So you are now, congratulations to all the guests, you are now in the center of the second global technology stripe. And that's why I think we have all these mails, contacts, and Yandexes here.
Welcome to the Silicon Stripe here. I think a very valid point, if you sort of translate that from a supplier perspective to a consumer perspective, do you see there a tech affinity in Russian consumers more than you see them in other markets as well?
No, I don't think so. If we look at the services which are prevailing, it's actually the same set of services which you can find on any market. It's search, social media, social networks, e-commerce, media, digital media. It's all the same. The structure of the market is exactly the same. And consumption time may vary from market to market. Yes, we have more social consumption than maybe in Europe, but there are other countries with the same amount of social consumption, in Turkey, for example. So we are not, I don't think we're different in the kind of we consume digital content. I think it's more or less the same. Maybe Dmitry could explain.
Yeah, please.
I think I agree with Arkady. One thing which I want to mention is that in Russia we have very well developed free-to-play model. So we have it in games, which I just want to maybe explain how this works. So usual general principle of buying games in Western world was you just pay $20 or $50 per box or per item, and this model works very well for 20, 30 years. But I think in some countries, especially like in Russia, it was a different model, which we call free-to-play or freemium. It means that people get free content and free service, and then service can charge additional money for some additional features in this process, and this works very well. Why? Because first you get much bigger access for audience, because once you charge people at the entrance of the service, you limited the number of people who can try it. And second, you can adapt your business model to the people. If you have like 3 persons, one person ready to pay $10, other person ready to pay $50, and other ready to pay $100, you can definitely fit for all 3. And in general model, you always charge only one amount of money per person. So I think this model pretty well works in Russia, and we hope it's still not there, but we hope that the same model will be adopted in areas like video and music, because we think that something is broken globally with music industry, and a lot of people try to change something there, because this is a historical mind of big owners of music content that we need to charge per track, and they do it like also very long period of time. They have long history of doing this, and now everybody, not everybody, but I think from our perspective, we believe that model should be changed. People are ready to pay for streaming, ready for pay for additional stuff, but model where you charge per track is definitely broken. So this is, I think, as an area where we need to improve the situation.
Apple would disagree, I think.
Yeah, I think there are a number of non-participants who might disagree, but
they're not invited.
Exactly.
No, I know the reason.
But again, and not surprisingly, we turn to the euros and dollars faster than I actually wanted to go there. Not surprisingly.
I think it's not dollars versus euro. It's more like model how you make business stuff.
No. That's it's just that, you know, understand the consumer first and then how to monetize it second. But I want to dwell on one point. I mean, gaming obviously for Mail.ru is also a very important contributor in terms of usage. A lot of participants, you know, struggle in how far is gaming a very much a niche opportunity, or is it turning into a mass market phenomenon? Looking at the usage, Gaming takes up more than twice the time of video consumption in most markets. Where do you see this market going? Is that a mass market already going forward?
Yeah, it's already mass market, and if you look try to talk about future, I think video and movie industry and gaming industry will be closing to each other more and more, because you now already have a lot of games with very cinematic quality of actions, and I don't know exactly numbers, but as I know in terms of some research, in 2011 it's already gaming in terms of sales beat movie industry in terms of DVD boxes and this kind of stuff. So this has definitely happened, and definitely games became more sophisticated, more realistic, and my belief that nearest future you will be more and more closer to this. For example, if you can see some movies, maybe Adventure of Tintin, for example, it's already very close to big games. So it's a film which was created from 3D world, and we just need to add some interactions. So we'll ask go left, go right, and ask audience to do some choices during the films. So definitely they close to each other, closer and closer. In terms of gaming industry, yes, it's already a huge market, especially if you can look on mobile. Mobile help very much, and in terms of statistics, in US already 50% of users have smartphones. In Russia, I think it's roughly quarter. So definitely everybody understands that number of smartphones will be achieved 100%. It's only question. It will be 2 years, 5 years, but everybody understands it. And games is now one of the leading time consumption on smartphones, and we focus on games a lot. And for example, we just 2 weeks ago launched a game called Juggernaut, who will have very good global success. It's not only in tops on Russia, it's also 37th place in China, in Australia, in some Europe. So we just see that gaming became more and more important. But other important stuff is that if you're just in the gaming business, it's very dangerous, because gaming it's also creating something unique, like creativity model. And of course, it's much better to be in a cinema theater business than in movie creation business, because in movie creation business you have big unpredictability and audience always changing their mind. So for our business, we see more that combining communication and gaming production together, this is the key, because social media give you audience, and gaming give you options to create good content and deliver it together. But if you only play in a pure gaming business, I believe it's pretty much very dangerous. And if you can look on history of gaming business, you cannot mention any company who was pure leader in this market for 30 years. And I remember that people I think in 70s believed that Atari will be fully dominate the world. And I don't know if people ever know this name right now. Maybe no. So this is how we see on situation. We believe that if you combine games and social media and social networks, this is good, and you can create good business because you're in platform business. If you just be a game business, this is very dangerous.
Thank you very much. It makes me feel old, but I do remember Atari actually quite vividly. Anyhow, you touched on a number of very interesting aspects. I mean, obviously, we can't look at digital media consumption in isolation. It always backfilters, if you want, to traditional media. We already talked about music, obviously one of the industry being affected first and very significantly. The second usage pattern we see right now is the shift from print usage to online. And Ahmet, in your past and present, you bridged that world quite extensively. And I would like to have your view again on the consumption side. Do you believe that sort of this erosion levels off from print to online, or have we just seen the beginning? I mean, if you look at markets like the US, where a lot of print titles are struggling heavily, But maybe for the benefit of the audience, before you go there, if you, let us know a couple of words about Trade Media East, because not everybody may be familiar with that.
Sure. We are one of the biggest publisher groups in Russia. We are publishing the famous free classified newspaper Özer, and we have been publishing that since 20 years and all over Russia in more than 200 local editions. So yes, likewise every other traditional media company and publisher, we are facing this transformation physically for some years. I think there are 3 stages of this transformation. The first stage is actually the top management and the shareholder has some view and try to impose this on their organization. This we call it a resistance or a denial stage. Thanks God we all passed this process, and now the second stage is where you actually adjust the natural speed of transformation and keep a good balance between your traditional business and then your rising business, digital business. And there is also a third stage, which I believe we are at that stage now, which needs a lot of commitment from the top management and shareholders' point of view. And this is proactively transforming business yourself without waiting for the natural speed, natural transition. So that is quite tough because you have to take some radical measures. You have to do something in advance before happening. Likewise, like what we did, for example, we have shut down some of the print publications while they were still profitable. This is a super radical thing, but you have to do this in order to show showcase to your organization how committed you are to transform yourself without waiting consumers to force you to do. In that sense, yes, we are today 25% of our revenues is coming from digital media, and in 2015 it will be more than 50%. So I can say that after 2015 we will be a more online player than a traditional media player. We are for consumer reach and consumer shift. Yes, of course, it's very fast. With 200 local editions of Özer, our print media, we had a reach of 2.5 million per month. Now with our 2 websites of Erar.ru and Job.ru, we have 15 million. So we have 6 times more reach in terms of audience with our digital media, which gives us a big mass.
Yeah, we come to the challenges, how to monetize that later on. Thanks very much, and I think it's clearly one of the key challenges going forward. Let's actually shift gears. As I said, the second topic I want to cover are the value pools. So where are the dollars and euros? Dr. Kallen, your chairman, Mr. Burda, triggered quite a debate a couple of years ago talking about lousy digital pennies to be earned. Looking at Burda in the last year, the digital business unit was the most important revenue contributor, if I'm not mistaken. So obviously you either found some digital euros or are collecting pennies by the truckload, which would not be bad either. So I would like to get you a few, where do you see the most important revenue opportunities and also revenue challenges in terms of monetization?
For a media company.
For a media company, of course.
When Hubert Burda said that we turn dollars into pennies, he was referring to the fact that if we take our content and just bring it online, we really turn dollars into pennies. When we look what we can get from CPC kind of business models, it doesn't give us enough to really pay for the content, or very seldomly it does. So normally not. So really we turn from dollars to pennies. I think we have to change that in future because we have to get away from CPC as a leading currency. We have to think about the currency. We have to give more space to advertising digital, and we have to bring more creativity to the advertising. So I hope that is something we can change over time. Up to now we did not change. So up to now it's true, when we bring content to online media, we turn dollars into pennies. We decided that we wanted to follow the customer as long as possible on its way to transaction. So we try to create content that is close to transaction. For instance, we do something like holiday check. That is the best information that you can get about trips, about travel. Based on that information, you can take your decision where to do your vacations, which is a very important decision. So we are close to the point of transaction, and there you do interesting businesses. Same holds true in other areas, if it comes to health, if it comes to finance. So we try to create content which is close to transaction. So, and if you would look at what we did over the last years, I think that is a key change. For the last 6, 7 years, we tried to be as close to the transaction as possible.
When you look at this move towards transactions, sort of looking at it through a traditional media lens, how important for you are synergies to your core brands in media? Is that, I mean, taking holiday check, do you look at it more as a standalone business, or in your vision, does it need to connect? Is it connecting already to some of the media franchises you have?
There are a couple of elements that support. So there are economies of scope. If you have a strong brand like Focus, which is a news magazine in Germany, which is a very good portal, news portal in Germany, it creates trust and it creates traffic. And this traffic you can lead to places where you can organize transactions. So for Holiday Check, for instance, it was of paramount importance to get that kind of traffic support. For Yameda, which is a portal around health, it is of importance that Focus drives traffic to it, drives trust and traffic to it. So I would say in the very beginning, it is extremely helpful to have strong brands, and these strong brands did build their trust originally in print. If you look 5 years down the road, if you look 10 years down the road, they stand on their own feet. But in the very beginning, it's extremely helpful.
Mm-hmm. Arkady, looking at Yandex as a search company, not surprisingly, I think 98% of your revenues are advertising, search-based revenues. Is that something that worries you going forward? Do you want to diversify that, or do you still see a lot of growth potential in the model?
No, it definitely doesn't worry us, because it's one model, but it's hundreds of thousands of different revenue streams. We have many, many advertisers. And it also doesn't worry us, because if you look at all the money on which internet creates, all the added value, if you exclude the areas which are not completely 100% internet, the areas where internet is just a facilitator. For example, if you order your tickets online, let's not call it online flying. It's just your ticket and your offline travel, and you just purchase online. So if we put all this e-commerce aside and look at the internet and the value which is created on the internet, it's just 3 areas. One is, internet is for communication and content consumption, and the model which works there is you buy a device, a notebook or a smartphone, and you pay for access. And the money which are generated in this area on the internet is globally is measured by hundreds of billions of dollars. The second area, which is 10 times less, is online advertising. You consume content, you search for something, whatever, and internet generates a lot of added value in this kind of advertising. And the total money globally generated, all the added value generated in online advertising is measured by tens of billions of dollars. Majority of it is search advertising. And the third kind of added value which we have online is all kinds of subscription services. Whether you subscribe to a newspaper or buy a book online or buy music, iTunes, whatever. That sector is even less. It's 10 times less than advertising. It's measured by billions of dollars. So billions of dollars on subscriptions, tens of billions of dollars in advertising, hundreds of billions in devices and access. So we are in the middle range of this, in online advertising. As I said, majority of online advertising is search, and we feel very safe here in this area. It's a lot of room for us to grow.
But isn't there a force which is e-commerce?
Yeah,
So
I started with e-commerce. I don't want to calculate internet revenues, which internet facilitate to create. It's not revenues created by the internet. When you advertise something online, it's advertising. When you make a transaction, it's not online transaction. It's a transaction to your offline activity. You buy a ticket and then you fly offline, or you buy boots and then you wear it offline. It's offline world. Internet is just facilitating. I'm talking about the value which is created in the internet industry itself.
Just to follow on that, if you look at the advertising market in Russia today, as I said in the beginning, it's TV-led, but online is already the second largest category, advertising category, with search taking the lion's share of that. Projecting that out, how much growth do you anticipate in online? Is that, 3 years from now on, is online going to be the leading category? Do you see some sort of growth limits?
In advertising, of course, online digital advertising is the fastest growing sector. Here in Russia, we're ahead of all the other kinds of advertising except for TV. TV is huge here. But there is a lot of room to grow, and we're growing, as everybody knows, we're growing faster than any other advertising media. We're slowing, but we're still at more than 40% growth rate, which is a lot. And the amount of advertising in Russia alone, in internet, will exceed several billions. And we're now, actually, even this year, we're already start counting online advertising in billions. And it's a lot.
Good starting point, at least. Dmitry, turning to you, looking at your business model, and you already mentioned it's much more balanced in the sense it's a combination of consumer-based models and advertising-based models. You already commented on the freemium you applied in gaming. Where do you see the strongest growth potential for your company? Is it advertising-based, consumer-based? Give us a sense.
Yeah, you're right. We just have balance, and we believe that if you can look on pure internet business, this is definitely two types of money. One type is when you charge companies or businesses. It's like advertising. And in advertising, I think it's, as Arkady said, market is continuing to grow. We are number 2 largest right now, and it's only TV market ahead of us. And if you talk about advertising, I think sorry for this, but I will be second time disagree with you. I think it's not a question to bring more creativity to advertising. I think it's vice versa, because for last a lot of time already agencies bring more and more creativity to advertising, and people less and less understand how effective it works, where money is going. So we have a little different message. We have bring more technology to the advertising. So bring more measurement, bring more targeting, bring more understanding. This is, I believe, most important direction of advertising business. And we definitely believe that slogan is bring more technologies, pretty much what will be drive advertising in nearest future. And it's also bring a lot of money from areas where you don't understand uncertainty, creativity, to more you exactly measure to whom you show advertising, how you target it, and definitely social networks and communication products help you a lot, because you have a lot of public data where you can target ads to specific people with specific characteristics. And it's not only what they want right now, but in general you can make some assumptions. So if person have different kind of age, different kind of interest, you can make some assumptions what he want to consume. And definitely in advertising you have two big categories. One category where people already decide that they, for example, need the car. They just want to understand what's exactly car they want. So they type in, for example, in search, I want car, and get some stuff. And other part of the advertising is where people is not decided yet what they want, and you want to give them ideas. So make him knowing some brands and learning him that there is some new categories of items and services which they can apply. And of course, the more you will understand customers, the more you can target ads, the better it will be works. So this is our assumption, and definitely this is where Facebook, by the way, also try to go to improve targeting using all data which are available publicly. This is one big market, and this market is good, growing, and pluses of this market is that this market, if economy is doing well, this market is growing very fast. If there is some issues with economy, usually this money is very nervous, so they just start to quickly decrease budgets or doing something to minimize their spendings. So if anything okay, it's growing faster than maybe other areas. But if something is not okay, they're decreasing. And there is other part which we also believe it's a very good area for us, is where you charge users, where you found some additional features, some additional services, and charge people. And this money is much more stable. If you found the model where people pay you some additional fees, they usually pay it no matter what's happened. So they're more stable. And they're not growing much quicker if economy growing very fast, but they also not drop if something going not well. So this balance give us, we believe this balance is pretty much good, and we want to keep it 50-50 roughly for our revenue, and we like this model, and we believe this model is make us more in general in good position.
Thanks, Ahmet. Turning over to you, and I think this is focusing on a very specific situation. You said the move to digital multiplied your audience reach by dimensions. We discussed it beforehand. Obviously, it's always challenging to monetize the audience reach in digital. From where you're coming from, we were talking about freemium models. What are the key priorities to monetize that reach, both from a consumer and from advertisers?
As we discussed before, we already have a strong reach with our online part of our revenue that is 6 times more than our traditional part of our revenue. On the other hand, of course, monetization is a different story. Our digital revenues is 1/3 of our traditional revenues, print revenues. So of course, this is growing. Last year we grew 50%. This year we are going to grow another 45%. So it is growing and replacing the print dollars. However, this is again slow, needs a lot of commitment, and then you have to organize your business in accordance with this change. In my view, Russian internet market from the advertiser point of view is quite strong, and then I think the supply side is maybe more developed than the demand side. Here there are some challenges. First of all, in our particular category, in classified, user-generated revenues is quite weak. When you benchmark it to Europe and US. That is one challenge. The second challenge is for the particularly for real estate, car, which is the heart of the classified revenue. The structure is very consolidated. For example, in France, you have 70,000 real estate agents. In Germany, as far as I know, there are more than 50,000. In Russia, this number is only 3,000, 4,000 in the whole country, which is very, very tiny because of this consolidated structure of the market, which makes it difficult for us, companies like us, to monetize. That makes this media advertising a very strong option for anybody, even for a classified player, which is unusual maybe in European benchmarks. And then in terms of media advertising, it's strong, and it's going to be strong. Of course, it's going to grow. Still, as I said, the supply side is very strong, and we are trying to convince our clients convince our traditional clients to buy more CPC, CPM, CPC. They are still trying to buy us from like fixed, which is of course very unusual in internet. So I think we make 50% of our revenue from media and then the rest 50% from services. But I think this balance is healthy for a country like Russia. But of course, I expect in the future user-generated revenues to increase.
I'm a bit more radical than Dmitry. Because if it would happen as Dmitry is saying, so that is all about targeting and better qualifying people, making sure that you reach the right person at the right time. That would mean if you want to build a brand, which still is the most significant part of all media spend, would stay with the traditional media people. I strongly disbelieve. I don't believe that the budgets will stay in traditional media and will not shift to digital. So I see some of the creative, traditional brand-building media budgets shifting to digital. And that will happen in the next generation of internet. The next generation of internet will allow much more creativity. We are still in the first days of the internet, still telecommunication-driven, still very technical, still not emotional, not much emotional. You will see that will change over the next couple of years. And more creativity will come to the net, and more creative advertising, brand-building advertising will go there. And there, from my point of view, is one more interesting thing that we should be aware of. For brand consumer companies, like the Coca-Colas, the Pepsi-Colas, for them targeting is not an issue, so creativity is the issue. They, for the first time in history, have the chance to directly get in touch through social media with their customers. So retailers cannot take them away from the customers, so they can build a direct link. And I think that will change their spending behavior over time significantly as well.
I would definitely tend to agree. I mean, as I said, we already see strong fan bases of Facebook for consumer brands, which is exactly going in that direction. Time is flying. As I said in the beginning, I at least want to give the opportunity, if someone wants to direct a question to the panel, speak up now or try to get the people in the coffee break later. Yes, we have one question here.
Thank you. I wanted to ask Arkady, recently you achieved a very nice thing. You had more viewers per day than the major TV channel in Russia. So I wondered what that means for you and whether it will change your strategy in any way.
No, it will definitely not change the strategy because everybody was anticipated. It was a trend. There is no miracle in that. We keep telling that we're growing faster than any other media, and sooner or later it should have happened, and it did. And again, it's a good press announcement, but we're in a different areas. We're not a media company. We don't create the content. We're just a service, and of course, yes. There is more people on Yandex than maybe on one of the TV channels, but you can tell the same about, I don't know, the underground system. There is more people underground than on TV channel each hour. But yes, it is important, but don't overplay it.
Thank you very much. The last topic I want to touch on, and we only have a couple of minutes left, is changes in the ecosystem. Has been over the last years a lot of movement, technology companies investing into content, Apple being one of the most important participants in movie rights in some areas in the European markets, Amazon following suit. Media agencies investing heavily into technology, also to your point, to measure ROI, but also opening trading desks. If you look at all this, Dr. Kallen, I would want to have you feel what is the most important shift and trend you see, and also, what keeps you awake at night? What's kind of, is there anything in these shifts in the competitive landscape that worries you?
Yeah, what you are saying is there are definitely new monopolies, and these monopolies are in distribution from a media point of view. And that worries me. So we have to understand what is their strategy and what will come next, and make sure that they do not kill all other industries because of their monopolistic or quasi-monopolistic situations. What do we try to do is we try to be as close to our customers as possible, to the readers, to the users, to the buyers, as close as possible, and try to be as close to transactions as possible. So we think if we can defend that position, we will survive.
Thank you very much. I think looking at the clock, which is merciless, that was a very good closing remark. I don't want to sum it up again, but looking... Three remarks. The director extended our session despite a red light flashing at me, which I appreciate. No, obviously, let's just go through the round, looking at the ecosystem. What's your view? What are the challenges? What are the most remarkable things?
Talking about ecosystem, it's a long topic. We cannot start it now. It's both distribution channels, both in browsers, in the search engines. It's the freedom of choice, the availability of choice for users, the availability of choice for businesses. That's actually, yeah, it's a long discussion.
Next panel.
Actually, I would like to use this opportunity, since we have a lot of people who came here first time maybe in their lives, just for you to understand again where you are now. I already told about this technology stripe with the Northern Europe, with, I don't know, the search company called Fast, the browser called Opera, the operating system called Symbian, the communicator called Skype, which has been created by Swedish entrepreneurs in Estonia. Then there is Israel, the country which is number 2 by capitalization on NASDAQ, with 2% maybe. And here in Russia, you have the 2 most valuable public European internet companies sitting here. It's because there's not too much of technology being created in the rest of Europe, and much of it has been created here. I want to give you just 3 examples of Russian-created technologies which today is globally used, and these are very well-known examples. One is from the space industry. The cheapest way to send anything to orbit today is to use a Russian rocket. So use a Progress. It may change in several years when the private space will come to place, but as of today and for several years to come, the cheapest way to send something to space is the Russian rocket science, especially combined with a French launch site in Kourou. This is the one example. The second example is geopositioning. Everybody is used to GPS, and we have it in all the devices, but those of you who have one of the latest iPhones, iPhone 4S, or one of the latest Nokia phones, you benefit of using the second positioning system available, which is GLONASS, the Russian positioning system, launched just last year, completely launched. Now it's available to everybody, to all the users, and it improves the quality of positioning to everybody, anywhere on Earth. And this is just the second global positioning system available. The third one hopefully will come in several years from Europe, Galileo, and then from China, Compass. But as of today, Russian geopositioning system is the second available. And the third example is our area search with just several search companies in the world, 6. There is only 3 of them with real global coverage, real global databases, and 2 of them are US-based companies, Bing and Google, and it's us, modestly. So it's a place where a lot of technology is being created, has been created in the past, and is continually being created now. And it's a unique place, and welcome here, and we're very glad you're here.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to, you don't need to if you want. Dmitry, do you want to close, and if you don't, move to space?
I think,
time-wise.
just to add, as Arkady already mentioned, that we really have a good market here, and potentially it's, of course, we not cover only, it's very important to understand that we not only cover Russia, we more cover Russian-speaking people, who is like 300 million people on planet right now. So it's number 5 most popular language in the world. So this is, if you create something which are available for Russian audience, usually you cover much bigger audience than Russia Federation. And second important point which I want to mention is that because of we have a lot of development here, we have 2 public company, Mail became public, Yandex became public. We see that startup community also start develop very quickly here, and we see more and more energy in startups, and definitely more and more VC money start to come to Russia. We see more and more VC faces from US, which visiting Russia and ready to do something here. So definitely, other market which is very start to developing here is startups, and I welcome everybody to launch companies in Russia and bring money to the Russian startup community.
To start advertising on Mail and Yandex.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for hosting that.